Comitato Regionale Lombardia dell'Associazione Italiana Biblioteche. Auguriamo a tutti una buona giornata, buon lavoro e diamo per prima la parola a Carla Mainoldi, che rappresenta UniCredit, che ci ospita in questa sede molto bella. Grazie, buona giornata.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning and welcome in the UniCredit Tower Hall. I would like to thank the Councillor for Culture of the City of Milan, Mr. Del Corno, and the Direzione Cultura of the Municipality of Milan, who has promoted this workshop, and the representatives of the USA, who have also cooperated in the realization of this project. We are proud to cooperate in this international workshop, as I said, promoted by the City of Milan, together with the Embassy of the United States in Italy and the General Consulate of the USA in Milan, and UniCredit, because UniCredit has always been engaged in developing culture in the territories where we operate. We consider culture a fundamental element in view of a sustainable economic and social development of the communities. This attractive workshop reflects on the innovative role played by the public libraries in the new urban context and their future evolution. We all readers and library goers are interested in this topic. Innovation and its impact are themes that affect all of us in our specific context. Here in the UniCredit Tower, the Milan's newest icon, we live and operate in innovative working spaces and can profit from all the new solutions developed in architectural and urban terms. We feel that thanks to this new environment, our jobs are smarter than in the past, and the relations with our colleagues and within the bank have become easier and more cooperative. We will have here in the panel of discussion Mr. Boeri, who is one of the artifacts of this area, and we can profit of the view of the marvelous Bosco Verticale from our working spaces. Our task is to improve the positive effects of the new trends and to maximize the benefits. Today, the current and future role of the public libraries following the new development and the digital revolution will be described by important speakers, and new scenarios of socialization and cooperation will be disclosed. We wish all of you and all the speakers a good and positive working conference. Thank you.
Buongiorno a tutti, sono particolarmente grato a Stefano Parise per questo invito, perché mi offre l'occasione, come neopresidente della sezione Lombardia, di portarvi il saluto dell'Associazione Italiana Biblioteche e del suo presidente nazionale Rosa Maiello. In Lombardia l'AIB è una realtà consolidata con oltre 300 associati e oltre 50 biblioteche e sistemi, e svolge sul territorio una intensa attività che si articola su diversi piani, dalla valorizzazione del ruolo delle biblioteche e la tutela della dignità professionale del bibliotecario, alla formazione continua, dalla promozione del programma NPL, Nati per Leggere, al sostegno economico alle progettualità innovative delle biblioteche del territorio. Ma qui voglio ricordare in particolare l'adesione e il sostegno dell'AIB a importanti iniziative promosse dall'Assessorato alla Cultura del Comune di Milano e dalla filiera del libro. Il Patto di Milano per la lettura, libri fuori classe e la candidatura di Milano città della letteratura UNESCO. Il nostro sincero augurio è che Milano, come Aarhus e Seattle, possa finalmente dotarsi di una nuova public library all'altezza di una città internazionale quale Milano sicuramente è. Le idee, le incompetenze, la volontà politica non mancano, il sostegno del LIBE c'è, insomma, per usare una metafora oggi di moda, ci sono tutti gli ingredienti per cucinare un piatto stellato. Vi ringrazio per l'attenzione e vi auguro buon lavoro.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I'm very glad to open this workshop with a warm welcome to the speakers and all of you on behalf of the city of Milano and its mayor, Giuseppe Sala. My name is Filippo del Corno. I'm the Councillor for Culture of Milan. You're present at this seminar organized by the Library Department of the City of Milan. Is a sign that the subject of the workshop is particularly significant for the professional community of librarians. It is our ambition and intention that the value of library and its role in the social, cultural, and economical change dynamics must not be confined to insiders, but can enter into the debate about the future of our city. Milan has a very rich library tissue, almost 200 libraries, public and private, and very long and important tradition. One of the first libraries ever opened to the public in the world was the Ambrosiana Library in 1609. The Bridense Library, established in 1770 by Maria Teresa of Austria, has documented Milan's and Lombardy's history and society for 2 centuries and a half. And let me also remember to you the Tribulziana in the Castello Sforzesco, library that preserves a very important collection, among which stand out a notebook by Leonardo da Vinci and some Dante's manuscripts, date 14th century. But today our attention will be focused on libraries that offer information access and knowledge service to the citizenship, the public libraries, and this city represented by the Milano library system, including the central library, 24 branch libraries, and the mobile library. It is a dynamic and very active network, open to cooperation with a lot of territorial realities that has started a process of technological and services innovation in recent years, focusing in particular on promotion of reading as a resource to be invested in. It is no coincidence that the library system, our library system, plays a key role in the initiatives taking place in Milan dedicated to the world of books. The Festival Book City, Tempo di Libri, Book Pride, just to name a few of them. The Patto di Milano per la lettura, Milan's Pact for Reading, evolved from the need for closer cooperation with publishers and booksellers and schools, and it is the tool intended to enhance and bring coherence to the various active projects in the city, and above all, to value reading, seen as a crucial moment in the construction of the new idea of citizenship. From the experience of Book City and the Patto di Milano per la lettura has derived the candidacy of our city to become part of the UNESCO Creative Cities for Literature, in a current and ambitious plan intended to cast activities and projects already started in an international perspective. And today, this evening, I will be in Paris to present the Milan candidacy. All these activities have found either a role player and driving force in the library system of our city. The library system effort at renewal has been supported by the municipality, both economically and the recruitment, notwithstanding with the difficult economic circumstances. But from 2015 to 2017, 30 new librarians were employed and 7 operatives were selected to manage the central library's repositories. And in March, the mayor, Sala, presented a 3-year investment plan consisting in 22 million euros to renew 9 libraries, 8 of which located in suburban areas, and to equip a decentralized library repository. However, it cannot be denied that one problem waiting to be solved in our city is that of a new building for the central library. The issue is going to be tackled in the report of director Stefano Parise and the architect Matteo Schubert. So therefore, I want to go now into details. But I would say that Milano lacks a public library combining in a building specifically designed either tasks that are connected to public library services. Study halls, creative laboratories, rooms equipped for digital and media literacy, spaces where to pull reading, spaces for activities aimed at specific user groups, but also community services provided by other areas of public administration in the form of a community center. And the study of research and research functions currently offered by the Central Library located in Palazzo Sormani. Nowadays, Milano is a changing city and one of the European cities increasingly focusing on creativity and creative enterprises as our driving force for sustainable development. The new Milan Central Library could be part of this trend and play an active part in the ongoing urban transformation. The opportunity to listen to the story of two of the most significant and important library achievements of the recent years, the Dock 1 in Denmark, Aarhus, and the Seattle Public Library in the States, through the voice of the protagonists is, I hope, an encouragement for us to deepen this issue. I wish you very good work in the seminar, and I would thank the UniCredit for hosting us in this beautiful building. I would like also to thank the USA Embassy of Rome. Thanks to them, we have here Mr. Tanner. And very important thanks goes to Laura Terruzzi, who organized all this seminar. So have a nice day and good work to you.
Is this working? No. Can you hear me now? Is it working now? Thank you. Can I get my slides too? Let's just go one back. There we go. Yes, my name is Henrik. I am a futurist from Denmark, and I'm really happy to be here today. My presentation is both a little bit about how you can get the mindset of a futurist, as well as some trends for how you can work with the future in terms of libraries. So I will give you a little tips and tricks on how you can spot trends and use them for yourself. And as you can see here, let's just take this one here. I am really, really fond of waves. So when you're talking about trends, when you're talking about the future, imagine that you're looking at the sea and you're looking at waves. We are always looking for a direction, a transformation that goes from something to something else. So if you hear words like globalization and digitalization, put those aside and always look at, can we see a transformation from something to something else? That's how we always talk about trends. So for instance, from ownership to access to is a big trend that has a lot of impact on libraries. Then you want to take a look at hard trends, soft trends, and game changers. So a hard trend, that is a wave that has the direction directly for you. It is something that whether you like it or not is going to hit you. A soft trend is a wave where if you imagine being a surfer, you would lie on your surfboard and then you imagine, okay, over here, anticipation, there's going to be a wave over here. We paddle over there and then we ride that wave. So you have to kind of anticipate and you have to also say that's the direction we are going in. So these are two ways of navigating the future, looking for the certainties, but also looking for the predictions, where we can say this is going to happen for sure. Hard trends and soft trends. And then the most important one is called a game changer. And a game changer is the one that kind of changes the rules. And to tell you about game changers, I'm going to tell you a little story that is quite cute. And it's about a bridge in Honduras called the Choluteca Bridge. I've said this 200 times, and in English now I can't do it. Funny. So this bridge was built in 1933 by American engineers, and it was a gift to this province. And they built it to show how good they were at building bridges. And if you can see, it looks a little bit like the San Francisco Golden Gate Bridge. And the people who had this bridge were really happy because it was beautiful and it didn't really require that much maintenance. And then we come to 1998 and Hurricane Mitch. And if you have seen Puerto Rico and Hurricane Irma and Harvey, the same category. So it's really, really powerful. And it destroyed much of this area, especially the Choluteca province was hit really, really hard. And there were entire villages that were like wiped away, and there were infrastructure that got hit so bad. But that bridge up there still was there afterwards. The only problem was it looked like this. And where I'm from, we call that sucks. So the reason why I tell you this story is that after the initial meetings for the people who owned this bridge, you know, saving lives and getting people food and drinking water and all of that stuff, you can imagine them sitting there going, let's have a meeting about, is it possible, you can see the water up there, maybe we can get the water back onto the bridge again. Oh, that would be nice. And the moral of this story, when we're talking about trends and transitions, and remember that something, if the water suddenly changes direction, that's something we have to be aware of. This is a game changer. And the more happy, the more fond we are of our bridge, the more we cling on to it. Remember that, because it's human nature, that the more we really like stuff from the old days, the old rules, the more we cling on to it, because that's how we are designed in our minds. Blockbuster, Kodak, all those big companies that you probably heard a lot about, they still cling on to that old business model, the old wave they rode on a long time ago, even though it's gone. So if you want to take a look at different trends, I'll give you one more from a Danish point of view, from the pensioning business. Would you like to see that? Yeah? So it looks like this. And it's called From Pension to Pause. And remember, all the trends we are working on always have from something to something else, because that enables you to say, where are we in this transformation? So from pension to breaks means that we're going to work longer, live longer, work differently, less physically stressful, and instead take breaks throughout our lives. This has a monumental effect on the pensioning business. If this happens, this is a soft trend. It's an anticipation. But the people who made this are actually working for pensioning companies. And they are actually saying this is going to take the water away from our bridge. But we are aware of this now. And the reason I show you this is that if you have companies all over Europe who start seeing this as a trend, then it's going to be kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy. Does this have any effect on libraries in Italy? Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. It might. So just be aware that if you look across different areas, that it's not just libraries we should take a look at. It's entire way of working and living. And if you want to have a little other trick on how we can spot trends, and especially the game changer, because usually the game changer, that's the one that really, really annoys us. Then you have to master this little ability, what we call seek irritation, because irritation is fantastic. I've been a futurist for 11 years. I try to master this ability every day. I'm getting there, but I'm not really, really cool at it yet. Have you ever tried having something that really annoys you? You know, where you say something to your kids and you go, ah, then 2 minutes later you go, I could have handled that a little bit better. Ever tried that? That's again our autopilot kicking in. Our autopilot up here, you have to be aware of that. For one thing is spotting trends and seeing the future. Another is how our minds are structured. I'm going to show you a little clip of something who goes really apeshit, who gets really, really annoyed, just to show you what happens when that autopilot kicks in.
Hadi! Tanrı'nı s***** televizyon gibi bu dedim beni bir...
5 futbolcumuz da ceza alanı içerisinde.
Gol!
Hakem işaretini verdi. Çalarov.
Ananı s***** gitti ya bak! Geldi! Ananı s*****!
Nereden bir çalım. Yanında Modric bir çalım daha. Topu hala...
Hadi! Allah belanızı versin! Ha?
1,5 dakika Gökhan Babacan.
Hadi abi, hadi geldi vallahi geldi.
So of course this becomes really like a caricature of irritation. But my point here is that if you're sitting looking at the future and something really, really annoys you, pay attention. And I'm going to teach you how you can pay attention, how you can use irritation as something as a driving force. And this works both in ways of looking at the future, but it also works in your private life. So it's actually probably the best skill that I can give you. And it looks like this. And for those of you who want to take notes, you're going to get my slides, so you don't have to take everything. So just to give you that. But if we're saying something annoys you, and this is built on brain science, we become irritated. What will happen is our brain will work down, skeptical, judgmental, unsafe, blocked, until we only see things that kind of strengthen our own worldview, because our minds are designed to do this with us. They protect us from something that we don't want to hear. So this is how the mind works. But the reason I show you this is also because of how our internet and search engines work, because they do the exact same thing. And this is called a filter bubble, when you kind of push information more and more down into something where you say, I just want to see more and more of what I'm looking at. And if you've seen what's happening in the States, where you go, for instance, Donald Trump, and the way that he talks to the people who elected him, and the people he's talking about, and the people who like him, is that their own worldview is becoming more and more narrow because of how the way these browsers work. So these filter bubbles are really, really important, that the libraries take part in like puncturing these bubbles. And the way you can do it, if something comes along that annoys you, you just breathe, and then you say interesting. What's the word for interesting in Italian? Interessante. Thank you. Well, that has a nice ring to it. Let's just try that. Let's say I show you a trend in a few moments, and you say, oh, that is really, really annoying. Then you go. All together, let's breathe. And interessante. And you can use, I know Italians really like your arms and your hands, so let's just try once more, because Danish people are rather boring with their arms. Let's do the Italian. Let me see how you do. With the arms. Yeah. Thank you there, lady in the yellow shirt. Thank you. So this is just to show you what happens. When you say interesting, your mind will automatically go up, and you will say, why did I just say that? And become curious. And all the other things up there, they can take forever to master. But that little trick, every time you hear something, you just go interesting, because then you can see different things. And it's really, really important that we teach that to the next generation as well. So let's take some trends. Let's try and look through these transformations and then see what can happen if we kind of ride those waves or look at what happens. So the first trend I would show you is this one. It's called from text to visuals. And it's been going on for quite a while. And the transformation that we see here is that all of a sudden, now we have, again, search engines that are able to spot images and work with images. Instead of us typing in text, it can actually pull a lot of visuals and then figure out what are we looking at. This is a picture from Pinterest. How many in here have Pinterest? Can I see a hand up? Interesting. How many, I would say, Pinterest is the biggest social media image platform in the world. So if you know Snapchat and Instagram and what they're called, they're actually not as big as Pinterest. It's kind of like a big corkboard of putting in pictures. Just to show you here, this is a picture of somebody who kind of searched for something. He didn't even read it. Didn't even write it in. Now it just finds all of these images that are correlated to what he's looking at. And this is just the beginning of all of this, which means it's going to be happening to video as well. So this is important that you understand that this transformation kind of has a lot of things in its slipstream of it. And I just put it into Pinterest to try it myself, put in library, and then it came up with this image. Can anybody tell me where that is from? Any geeks in the room? May the force be with you. Star Wars, exactly. So, for those of you who want to take the long roads, it's nice to know that even in the Star Wars universe, there are libraries. That must be nice. To know that you're still relevant in Star Wars. Yeah. So let's just take a look at another one. And this is something that has a lot of impact in private companies, but it also has a lot of impact in public organizations. It's called from one brand to attractive character, or attractive characters. And this plays into the way that we Google everything. So where we used to just Google like a library, and that's then the picture of it. But now we start looking at the people inside this, and inside the organizations to see who's on board this boat, somebody we can relate to. And that means that every single one of you in this room, including myself, needs to be aware of how do we actually present ourselves to the outside world, because the next generation, they've learned this from an early age. This girl here, she's a TV chef, and there are a lot of TV chefs out there. But what she did is she said, who should look at me and then love me? Who should really, really love me? And then she said, people who like food, people who like pretty girls, people who like the American outback, you know, the wilderness, that storytelling, and guns. So who in America can kind of like that? Pretty girls, food, and guns. So she has a really specific audience that really, really loves her. So that's one way of communicating and doing the visual presentation of looking for exactly what they are thinking it should look like. And the other one is going the other direction, is to hate you. And I know this can become a little taboo to say that somebody should hate you, especially being a public library. But you have to take that exercise, just the mental exercise of saying, if somebody loves us on one side, who should hate us on the other side? Because if you're in between, nobody's going to listen to you. Nobody's going to pay attention to you. And that is very important. So just to tell you a story about somebody who hated somebody else. Do you know Alice Cooper? He's a musician, I think, 80s or something. He was like a big thing. Very provocative. If you listen to him now, you go, what was the big deal? But back then, it was a really big deal. And he had to fill a theater. Let's say 5,000 people, and there wasn't anybody in the theater yet. So he said, instead of talking to the people who loves us, should be like teenagers, rebellious teens, that's the people who should love us. Can we talk to the ones that should hate us? And if you're a rebellious teen, who would be the one over here? Parents, right? So what he did was he parked a van out there, he faked that it had an engine meltdown, and then in what's called Piccadilly Circus in London, imagine you have your morning TV show, and then the TV cameras are pointing towards the people talking, and the background is Piccadilly Circus. And all of a sudden, there's a big truck outside with a picture of Alice Cooper in bare ass with a big anaconda snake where it says, go to concert with Alice Cooper. So every single parent was going like, if you ever go to that concert, rebellious teen, I will disinherit you. And what do all the teens do? Of course. So that's the point, again, if you want to communicate, remember, you have to make that exercise of love and hate just for the fun of it. Just try to say who should hate us, hate our guts, and then never be inside that middle area because nothing is going on in there. There's too much noise in there. So, if I should make a little scenario of this, then it's all about stepping into character. It's all about looking at the people and not the library. It's all about seeing what drives us. What do I love to do? What do I hate to do? And then use that as the driving force for building a new type of library. And there's actually nothing new in this, I wouldn't say that. It's just the mindset of it. So all the geeky, all the people who could look at that image before and say, that's Star Wars, and that's from that scene, you have to embrace all the geekiness, because that is where we are out on one end or the other end. Remember that. So enjoy being geekies. And if you're a leader and you want to know where the geekiness lies, use magic moments. A magic moment is a really important thing for a leader. And it's a magic moment is something we have every day. That's where something is really nice. You know, the day was good, I got a really nice hug, or the coffee was just excellent, or, you know, the citizens that came in, they all smiled, or whatever. It can be whatever. But if you don't know the magic moments, you don't know where you're going to position yourself. You can't step into character if you don't know that. So that's also an exercise that you need to think about. Just take another trend, and this one is called From Good Story to My Story. And this has also been going on. This is a wave that's been going on for maybe 10 years, but it's going to continue, and it's going to become even bigger. So good stories is something that we have a lot of. A lot of information, a lot of channels, a lot of TV, a lot of streaming, all those kinds of things. So the scarce resource is, what does this have to do with me? and I want to become part of it. And a lot of gaming industries have actually played right into that me wave, which means, for instance, here we have in real time the ability to change the color of a car. And it can be as simple as that. You get that experience that you are part of the story, instead of that everything has just been made and then it's static. You want it to become dynamic. So here's another example of something that is going to happen. I know libraries usually really love books. Am I right? No, there's somebody who's nodding and other people looking, nah. Okay, there is something to talk about with the love and hate. But if you look at the evolution, what's going on inside the technological areas of the ebook, there's this interesting thing where you can see that we're going from, again, a static book, where now you have, for instance, this is an experiment where you type into a real book, like a notebook, and then it can read what you are writing and put it into a story. So from really, really physical stuff, it can track what you're writing and then put it into a digital version. And what they're talking about now is this is going to kind of be the first step in blurring this distinction between who is actually the writer and who's the reader. And there's going to be a new field in between those that's not been named yet. And you can be a part of naming what should that be, where you co-create the stories. And I think it's going to be something that, like my kids, when they become 18, it's going to be a natural thing for them to be a part of the stories, this part of the universe. So here is one of the latest installments of this trend. How many in here have tried playing Assassin's Creed? May I see a hand? Come, proudly, all the geeks, come on. Let me see a hand. Oh yeah, thank you. Thank you, thank you. Assassin's Creed is a very popular video game. A game. I guess video game, that's how we called it in the ancient days. But that doesn't make any sense anymore in English. Just dawned on me. Fantastic. No, but anyway, Assassin's Creed, this fantastic universe that they created, and this takes place in Egypt. So they co-created a division of the game where you take out all the killing, and now you can just explore inside this universe. So you can go with your character, you know how to work it, and now you can use it in history lessons just to kind of immerse yourself into this. And this is still just working like on a PlayStation, like this. Imagine when you put VR goggles on and you can go inside this. This is going to be really, really interesting to see where we're going from here. So universes. I'm just going to play this little video to show you.
Magic Leap have been working on. It can let you interact with fictional characters in your own living room.
Now, again, when I click to look at more detail at our sun, it's probably the best visual I've ever seen of our sun, including the TV. I'm going to try to keep it in my field of view. But look at that.
And this is a company called Magic Leap, if you want to take a look at what they're working on. But this is from last year. So they are already ahead. And this means that you have to know about what's called virtual reality, augmented reality, and mixed reality. And I used to work with this at the university a long time ago. Virtual reality is where we put on a set of glasses, and you look inside a virtual world, and you can go like this and see everything. And then you have augmented reality, which is kind of like putting on like a glasses you are wearing, like normal set of glasses. Then you see the real world, and it puts a layer onto it. And mixed reality, that's the next one. That is where you can put things inside. So it kind of mixes both worlds, both a virtual world and the real world mixed together. And if you can put that inside contact lenses, that is going to be something that really is going to change everything. And remember also, just because we can do it doesn't mean that we should do it. And the next 10 years is going to be the ethical decade. We're going to be talking a lot about ethical stuff. Should we do this just because we can do this? It's one of those really, really important places. And who's going to own that discussion? Can I hear it again? Libraries, thank you. So remember that. There are all these really important questions that are going to arise over the next 10 years. And it's the Wild West. It's something where we don't know in which direction we're going, and we would like to be in a place where we get like a tour guide, somebody who can push us and who can nudge us and who can provoke us and who can say interesting. all that discussion, there's somebody who has to own that. And I would put my bet on it, then the libraries would be a really, really important part in that discussion. Because a lot of people are going to be going downhill in my irritation, because there's going to be a lot more complexity in the world. So there's something you need to accept, and you need to own that. So I'm just going to show you a couple more slides and then close it off. Because I told you about hard trends, the certainties, the waves that are going to hit us, what we can predict. And remember, sometimes when we hear people talking about that you can't predict the future, that is because they do it like black and white, predict everything like this. And I agree, that's not possible. But if you want to take what I'm talking about, and we're talking about predictions, it's kind of like me looking through the keyhole of that door down there. I totally narrow down my field. I remove everything that I'm in doubt of, and just look at those things that I can see this is coming for certain. Then I can predict it. Then I can use it to navigate. And if you're working and you're seeing trends and you say, this is a hard trend, it's a wave that's coming directly at us, that means you may not ignore it. Remember that. But hard trends, soft trends, game changers, and then there's the counter trend. And counter trend is kind of like a pendulum, or like a wave that hits something, then it will go back again. So you also have to figure out, where are we on this pendulum swing? And this is my favorite one. It's called High Tech, High Touch. I think it was written 12 years ago by a guy who was also a futurist, talking about the more technological the world will become, the more we need the opposite, the nature. So the more connections online, the more we will crave to be like physically together with people. So the more we have virtual, the more we want real. And that gives me hope, because it's really easy just to kind of go like this, and then you just kind of spin off over here, and we can just do whatever we like because we can do it. But the ethical question, the ethical decade, is what kind of keeps us in balance between these two poles. And also, I don't know if you tried going like unplug everything, like just go into nature, especially with kids, because kids will eventually come and say, okay, can we please go over here again, because now I've been unplugged for 2 weeks and it's too much for me. So this one is really important, to know where you are, to feel the community. And if you remember my talk about the geeky, the specialist, to step into character, that means that the library that you are talking about, the library that you want to own, and I mean own it like it's in your soul, it has to be in touch with the community. So you shouldn't make a library that's built in China if that doesn't fit your local way of thinking. It has to fit that one. So the last scenario here, when we're looking at these trends that I presented, could be that you become that physical meeting place between all this virtual world that is going to happen, which in my book is a hard trend. But we want to crave to be together. We want to have community, but we don't know where to do it. And the funny thing, every time I mention something like this, people who are talking about virtual reality say, but I could do this from home. Yeah, you could, but that is only virtual reality. Remember, augmented and mixed, that's where you have to have a room as well. You have to be inside a space. So there are rich opportunities to create these, what shall we call it, creative collisions between people, and use that irritation for your advantage to push us in the right direction. Let me just see the time. I have time for one final story. So I will tell my favorites, the one that really gives me hope, because the trends that I'm talking about are usually something about 5-10 years into the future. That's kind of my scope of how far I can see. But I was looking at, what if we look into millions or billions of years into the future? Is there anybody who could pull that off? And I discovered a guy called Michio Kaku, who's a NASA scientist. Really cool guy, has a lot of videos on YouTube. And he's talking about, can we hear like intelligent life from outside our galaxy, and all that theme of that. And what he said is that there are 3 types of civilizations. There's civilization 1, 2, and 3. Civilization 1 is called planetary. Civilization 2 is called stellar. And civilization 3 is called galactic. So planetary, that's where we harness our planets. That is where CO2 is not a matter of how much we put in, it's a matter of balance. And volcanoes, we can use that as an energy source and all those things where we really harness the power of the planet. We come together. The Civilization 2, Stellar, that would be Star Trek, and 3, Galactic, that's Star Wars, to kind of put it mildly. The problem with where we are right now is this: we are in Civilization 0, which is called tribal, where the rules of the game is them and us kind of clashing together. We haven't really discovered that we are on a closed, what you call it, kredsløb, what's that called? A circular. You get what I'm talking about. Like the planet in itself is a closed system. And what's happening is when you go from 0 to 1, you have to look at planetary systems. So the transition from 0 to 1 is where you see the rise of the European Union. You see internet, you see social media, something that kind of connects the entire planet together. And the reason why this gives me hope is because it's all about community. It's all about coming together. It's all about going away from them and us. It's all about interesting, opening up, seeing new perspectives. And the grand finale and my final word will be that every single one of you in this room, when your grandchildren come to you 50, 60 years from now or thereabouts, they will say, "You lucky bastard. You are a lucky bastard because you were there when the internet was born. You were there when we started that transition from 0 to 1. Is it right that you were there?" And as my daughter asked me recently to this, "Daddy, did you have iPads when you were a kid?" And I said, "No." And she said, "How did you get online then?" So that mindset of it is really, really interesting to see where we're going. So that is my final statement to you. I think my time is up, and I will play the baton over to, is it you next, Rolf? Yeah, thank you for your attention. I'll see you in the panel debates.
Yeah. It's a hard act to follow. Still, I hope the technicians will bring on my presentation. I'm Rolf Hapel, and you're like that bunch up there. Those people, they are attendants to something going on in the library where I come from. I'm going to talk a little bit about what this new main library in Aarhus has meant to the city. I'm going to talk about user involvement, a little bit about play and early literacy, why that is so important for the libraries to be working with. And then I'm going to talk about maker culture and a little bit about what we can see really an important field for the libraries to be active in right now, which is the smart city. So let's start with the doc. This is how it looked. Very big project, 19,000 square meters for libraries and citizen services. I'm also head of the citizen services, which amalgamated to the libraries. Citizen service, that's all about health insurance and your passports and all the interaction with the public services. So this is an enormous project. Under the building, there's an automated parking space for 1,000 cars. But it's more than just a library and a parking space. It's also the climate securement of the city, because it's built on an elevated area that protects the city from the harbor and the sea. Water rising. So now we have secured the central part of the city for water level rise up to 2.5 meters from where it is now. We know the ice cap is going to melt, the water will rise. So this is a good measure. So it's a big project. Actually, the largest construction project in the history of Aarhus City. And the library is really a prominent place of it. The money, about 280 million euro for everything. And how is it financed? We got money from a big foundation in Denmark. We had sold the old main library, capitalized the rental income. We have rental spaces for companies that can pay the high rent. And of course, there was some money to the construction project. a little bit of money from other foundations for special items in the library. So now we have a library that is 3 times the size of the library that we had before. We have very special places for kids, and lots of technology, and so on in the library. So just to let you know, how long time does a process like this last? In 1998, I was head of a committee that would determine where could we put a new main library in the city. The old main library was from 1934. And then 5 years went by, and we got the first political sort of real decision that put some money in our hands to start sort of the planning process. And then eventually we had, in 2007, we had determined the competition. And in 2009, the competition was won by the HLS company. And then in 2011, groundbreaking, and 4 years later, in 2015, we opened it. We started in 1998, 2015, we opened the library. 17 years of my life. I lost all my hair in that period. So, why? Remember 1998, what happened in 1998? Google came in 1998. 2004, Facebook. 2007, our smartphones came along. So, in the period of our planning, everything changed. And that's a big point of planning libraries. Everything changes all the time. So, just back to the project, it's a big thing. Opening of the river, you see the river running up here. That was covered originally, and cars were driving down there. So part of the project was opening the river and making this enormous construction here. Now, light rail, like your trams, is running under the building, and the architectural idea is to pull people from the center of the city, which is here, and down along these new harborscapes. Just to give you the scale, this is Venice, the Lido, and this is our project, about the same scale as the Lido in Venice. And big architectural idea, 9 big concrete columns and a roof on top of it. Idea is, you have the cityscapes, you wander the streets and the plazas of the city, and you should have the same feeling when you step into the library as being an open and welcoming place where everybody can come in without paying anything. So the idea is to sort of continue the cityscapes into a covered plaza. There you see it again. Another scale study. I won't go into that, but this is how it looks actually. So you see the harbor spaces, they are very rough and industrial. So the building also has a kind of roughness to its exterior. This is how it looked just before we opened. I would say that there is a little distortion in the picture. It's not that wide, it's kind of a little bit more like that. You look at the train, it's kind of a little bit more compressed. And this is how it looked just after we opened. We opened in June, and the building was beaming, glowing, 24/7 for a full week, because we didn't know how to turn out the light. We couldn't find the switch. It was all automated systems all over the place, so that was a challenge. So the big question is, why? Why build a public library when Google and Facebook and we have everything in our pocket and so on? So that's a point. So, to which problems in society is the library the answer? You always have to ask yourself that question. The libraries, they're instruments. They're instruments for political will. Never forget that. There's a reason for libraries. In the old days, in the industrial society, it was a sharing economy. It was a way of sharing knowledge into society in those physical artifacts that we call books. But we have passed the industrial society. those libraries, they were about democracy and education and culture. And they were a tremendous success, at least in the Scandinavian and the Anglo-American countries and in many countries. A lot of people would use them for knowledge. So, but we need to think differently. A kind of reinvention of the library, new ways of being professional, new products, new alliances, new ways of getting money into the libraries. And that's a challenge. Just to again draw it up kind of in an understandable way, we need to move away from the idea just of having information to look at what can only be experienced in the library, in the physical space. We need to see the space as a medium in itself. Now you're sitting in a space that is partly a medium. There are loudspeakers and you have the screens and so on. You can do much more in that set. Whatever can be experienced on site, and data and information is not interesting in itself. It's interesting if you can put it into context, if you can give it meaning and significance. And the library's great privilege is that we have the ability to actually create the right context to place information in. For instance, now we are now in a place, we have created a context. We are now not discussing lecturing, but later on we'll discuss. We have placed some data in a meaningful context. The libraries can do that. We are about credibility and about meeting people, experimenting, looking at the visitor in the library, not as someone who will consume your resources, but somebody who will actually add value to your resources. So, there is a lot of ways that we can work with that. I'm not only head of the libraries in Aarhus, I'm also head of the so-called citizen services. That means I'm a civic servant. I participate in a lot of planning meetings, for instance, when a road is going to be changed or something. We have a way in Aarhus to deal with that, an old way. We will hear people. We will make a meeting, people will come, will, listen, and then God knows what. That was an old, dull way of doing things. So we have changed that in the full municipality. This is not only about libraries, this is about public service, which is really interesting. We work together now with the citizens. User-driven innovation and co-production, co-creation. Maybe some of you are familiar with Sherry Arnstein's work, old work, Citizens Involvement Ladder from 1969, where she talks about in the bottom, when we're talking about citizen involvement in public affairs, is only manipulation. Politicians and civic servants, we won't listen. We invite you, okay, go away again, we'll do whatever. Therapy maybe, if you're angry, you can. If you're irritated, you can get rid of it and you'll feel better afterwards. Still, we won't do what you say, we'll do what we want to do. So, we were probably around here in the cities, in the municipality. We would actually inform people and we would, to a certain degree, ask their opinion, to a certain degree. That was where we were only 2-3 years ago. But we have moved really up to giving away power from the politicians to the citizens, asking the citizens in a true manner, what would their opinion be? What could we actually do? Because we know that the citizens, they're experts in their own life. We might be experts in librarianship or whatever, but that doesn't count. So, the formats for involving people. We have been working in the libraries very much with all kinds of formats. Meetings, workshops, idea pitching sessions, focus groups, of course. Well, cafe format, where you invite people, have them draw on the cloth and, lots of discussions and so on. Vision creating, phototyping, Before we went into the new library, in the planning period, we had staff members going around in the library, taking pictures of what was good and bad, and discussing what should we bring on and what should be left, working with the community on idea pitching for the library. Using lead users, we actually hired young people, students from the university, on a contract of 6 hours per week, working with our librarians. We had one who was an expert in social media, one who was an expert in literature, one who was an expert in search engines and so on. And we formed a community we called Mind Spotters, and you see the Mind Spot caravan there. So we went out into the cityscapes and to the public schools and so on with these persons, and we used their network. They were connected to a high degree. There's some of them. User-driven design, participatory design, and so on. We worked with kids over a summer period, informing their vision of the new main library. What would it be? They would build models in cardboard, and we would interview them along the way, and we would document it. We documented it, which was really interesting. And we put it into the architectural competition. So the architects, they had to relate to what the kids, they had said. They thought we were joking. We weren't joking. We were dead serious about it. And eventually, a lot of the ideas of the kids were actually embedded in the library. So before we actually started building, we needed a vision for the place. What should it be? And we, in this process of engaging the citizens and stakeholders, politicians and all kinds of people, we came to the conclusion that this should be a space for human development and interaction, promoting experience, learning, innovation, etc., through a flexible and programmable building with special focus on children and families. Not a word about books, not a word about technology. Nobody could tell us, would there be books when we opened the library? Probably, and we would plan for it. But will there be books in 30 years' time from now? Also probably, but we don't know. This building, that building will stand for 150 years. Nobody knows what the future would look like in 30 years. And technology, we couldn't plan for technology. Everything changes rapidly. 15 years from now, who knows? So we needed another way of looking at the building. And it is the concept of the human needs that are the common denominator. We all need good acoustics, good views, nice place to dwell, different ways of being together and separate. So that would be the denominator for the building. And we agreed on that, because that doesn't change over centuries. I mean, that would the same thing 2,000 years ago. We need security. We need heat, that kind of thing. So to make an optimized building for human stay was actually our purpose. And we work a lot with partnerships. Why? Because that's a different way of engaging with local society. Engaging partners will engage human beings. So we get a lot of inspiration from our partners. And we work a lot with diversity. We get a lot of communication in that sense. Just to give you another model on how we think about the library as a kind of community center. When we're smart, we call it mash-up library. Those of you who have ever made your own homepage, you'll know the term mash-up. Mash-up is a homepage where you embed sources that somebody else will maintain. You might want to show the TV program or the weather forecast, and then through a technology called widgets, you just mash it up into your homepage, and then somebody else will maintain it. We took that notion, put it back into the physical place, and now we have a lot of people who actually works in and for the library without salary, namely our partners. They will do activities in the library that are within our scope and purpose, but they will do it. We'll cater for it. We'll provide the space, we'll put in the program and so on. But they'll do it. And now we have about 130 partnerships at Doc 1. All kinds of NGOs, associations, non-commercial companies, etc. Lots of different public services. They all come to Doc and they do their thing in our programs. So about 60% of whatever we do, this is a program for 1 week in November last year. We had 42 activities. Most of them were done by partners. So a lot of things are going on there. Actually, the other day we set the new record. We had 33 events going on at one day at Doc 1. 33. So, just to talk about this James Heckman, he's a Nobel Prize laureate. He says, investment development, that is the best economic thing you can ever do for a society. And that is what libraries do. Because it is so extremely important that we work with the children and families. And these are just images from Doc where we can see what is actually going on in the library. Reading, being inspired, reading in solitude, see the feet sticking out. Children's theater, this interactive floor, which is a huge success, contains 15 different games. We were part in developing it with the Kavi Center, where you work. Healthcare info, gaming, of course, different parts of gaming. This is the old school arcade games. Maybe you recognize those. And sometimes we have to kick away the fathers for the kids. They can make it. Different parts of gaming, board games, of course, chess. Creative play, creation is going on, of course, Lego in all kinds of formats. And, just play, singing, lectures, lunch break. You need to cater for your food also. So having a special place for families and children is one of our big things. And one of the things that we put a strong emphasis on is that we need to be sure that play has the same prominent place in the library as literature or art experience. Why? Play is not only about strengthening the economy, because we will all get better people if we are good players, and more social and more intelligent and whatever. Play has its own value, like art experience. It's a life experience. It happens when it happens, like you experience a piece of art. It's not about you getting more smart or being able to earn more money or to interact more in society. It's the experience you get when you get it. And that's the same with play. So play has the same prominent place in our library as literature, for instance, which can be hard to imagine, but you should come look at it sometime. Maker culture and co-creation, of course, is a big trend coming from US and quickly adopted by some European libraries. Hacker spaces, performances, all kinds of gaming. This was actually from our own old main library. So this image is at least 8-9 years old. But it shows how kids were working in making new games and hacker labs. People labs we do in the library, idea pitching. You see, it's all about human interaction and learning from each other. You see, this is from one of our making spaces, and look at the people, young people, old people, together, working, grandfathers, grandchildren. Oh, that's the guy we saw before. This guy in the green, he's one of the volunteers. He's one of our partners from Open Space Aarhus. He's a student, tech student, comes down to Dokken and helps us with his mates. Mini-maker fairs, coding pirates, and design thinking. So how can we actually be better at creating new services and new things in the library? We have made a toolkit together with the Chicago Public Libraries, supported by Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and working with the company called IDEO on designing that. So you can download that for free everywhere. And I need to say also, you'll also get my slides so you don't need to write down everything. Last thing I'm going to touch upon is the smart city development, where the libraries can actually be part. Aarhus is really the second largest city in Denmark. We have a strong university, very young city, and we are one of the top-ranked smart cities. Smart cities, that's all about technology embedment, but it's much more than that. We have been working with the City Pulse project, where we have made the platform for the city, where we exhibit all the data that the city makes, all the sensor data, all about traffic and air pollution and whatever data, big data, that the city exhibits. It's done on a platform that the libraries have developed, and we provide it free for everyone to use. On top of that, we make these events, for instance, the Open Culture Days, where we invite young developers to come to the library, work for a weekend on these open data that has to do with culture, and we make a hackathon on top of it. They create new services in the library. We provide the Coca-Cola and the meals and the mentors and the business angels that would come and look, are there any talents here? We give prizes for the winners. And they are working so hard in these weekends. These guys, they won the competition on the cultural data. They had, on top of data that volunteers had put into the city archives, they made a service, web-based and an app that is now being sold to city archives in Denmark. And they have formed their own little company on top of that. So that's just one of the things. We have made the Open Energy Days, same concept, where young developers work on these data. Open Tourism Days, again, happens in the library. Happens in the library. We cater for it. Design thinking camps in the library. Service Jam in the city, where we again work with developers in the library. So these are ways. Internet Festival in Denmark, in Dog. City Lab is the next thing that we are going to do, which is on one of the harbor spaces just north of the Dock 1. We have embedded all kinds of technology. And we will put up an enormous screen, it'll come up next week, I think, where we'll exhibit all the city data, and we can do interactive sessions with people passing that place, which is now furbished and really a nice place to go. So a lot of testing can go on there, again, run by the library. Last thing is the digital citizen involvement. Because of having been part of so many planning processes that has not been very good, we have a lot of experience in designing how can we make a digital involvement method for the city. When we have a new planning process going on somewhere in the city, how can we engage people not only in a physical meeting, but also in a digital way? And we have just made a new sort of platform for that will be embedded in the different municipal entities. And so we are competing now in Aarhus for the European iCapital City, iCapital Innovation Capital for 2017. And we'll see if we get the prize. We are among the 10 finalists. There were 31 competitors, and we hope to, if not win, then be runners-up. Okay, we'll see about that. Pictures from Doggen. I say Doggen, that's a Danish term for Dog 1. Maker Faire. You see these making, we only make pop-up maker spaces. We don't want them to be there permanently. We bring stuff up from the basement, all kinds of 3D printers and laser cutters and what have you. 3D printing. All age groups are fascinated in what goes on. Drone workshop, you see the girl there? She is actually flying a drone. You see the one in the pink t-shirt. Okay. I hope that it will somehow work. There we go. And coding pirates, young kids, working with code in their free times, of course. helped by the Lego Mindstorm, which is another way of working with it. And again, fascinating by all kinds of stuff. Even knitting could be really interesting, knitting workshops. And this is our latest co-worker, the robot Norma. She's now being trained in speaking Danish and being an active listener to young kids that are not good readers for them to read aloud. Now, she's a humanoid. She's really interesting because she has all the gestures and she keeps eye contact and she will pose interested questions to the kid. And, you know, the kids, they love her. So just to say this has consequences, of course. What are the competences that the staff needs? Well, they need to be somewhat of a teacher. They need to be somewhat of a tutor. They need to be a facilitator. You see, that was the process where we asked the kids, what about the new main library? That girl, she said she wanted to hear birds singing in the library. We didn't know what to do with that. Eventually, we installed 2 soundscapes where you can actually hear seagulls screaming, and we can change all kinds of moods and sentiments in the sound. That was that girl that gave us that idea. And we need to have staff that can run projects and even develop projects. I'm pressing and hoping for the best. Actually, I'm closing up now, so anyway, to be service-minded is, of course, still one of the things of the library. Just to recapitalize, we have 1.3 million visitors. We are a city of 300,000 inhabitants in that library per year. This year will go up to 1.4 million, we can already now see. That is crazy. And that is because the library has become the center of what goes on now. So think about moving the libraries from transaction, lending out books, to creating relations to your local society. I'll give you this quote that I like a lot from Ragnar Audunsen, a Norwegian researcher. He says, libraries are low-intensive meeting places and creators of social capital and trust. I would argue that we are becoming high-intensive meeting places and creators of social capital and trust. Thank you very much for your patience. Thank you.